Whenever you are asked to give a presentation, you are taking your audience on a trip and you are going on a journey with them. And as you begin to think about your journey, you are really at a crossroads. You have to ask yourself, what is my goal? What is my purpose? And in speech making, we suggest there are four different types of general purposes. So you have to ask yourself, what is my goal? What is it that I am attempting to do in my presentation? Am I attempting to inform my audience? And whenever you are trying to inform your audience, you are providing them with information, and that information um, would provide both sides of different topics. It would provide them with foundational information. It would be about educating your audience. There are lots of situations where we claim to be informing when in reality we are persuading. Take, for example, a visitor who comes to one of your classrooms who's there to talk about study abroad. So, this is a graduate assistant in the study abroad office who comes to your classroom, has some materials, hands out that materials, and tells you a little bit about different programs and opportunities that exist in study abroad. Now, this speaker might say they're there just to inform the audience, but I would say if you asked that speaker, additional questions, you probed it a little bit more, you might find that they're actually there to persuade. Typically, my experience has been those who work in the study abroad office really believe in that mission. They believe that it is a positive experience that they wish every student would take advantage of, and that it leads to all of these great outcomes. And some of that information would probably be shared in the presentation. I don't think that that speaker would usually give as much time and space to some of the downsides of study abroad. In fact, I think if you were to ask a question related to study abroad, like, would this maybe cost more? Then they would almost refute that position and pitch it in a different way. So, when we're thinking about informative and persuasive speaking, what I think is important to know is that most of your speaking life will most likely be persuasion. But that doesn't mean that you won't have any informative speaking situations. So if you are at the workplace and you work on a committee and you're working on a project, your boss in a staff meeting might ask you to tell us, the group, where your committee is on that project. And then you would inform them where your group is. And so there are opportunities and times in life when we do informative speaking. So in this class, the first speech that you will give is an informative speech. The second speech and the third speech are both persuasive speaking because most likely you will do additional persuasive speaking when you leave the classroom. You might also find that you could give a speech to entertain. I like to think about comedians that I love, and their primary goal or purpose is to entertain. I think we see a lot of this type of speaking in some of the microblogging that you see. You might find that some of your audiences that you watch of speaking on, say, TikTok is to inform. Some of it might be to persuade, but a lot of it is to entertain. And so they have to balance if it's a TikTok account that hopes to educate the public, with they need it to be both entertaining and informative. The fourth type of purpose is to inspire, and we will do a speech of inspiration in our toast. So the final speech in this class is a toast speech. It's a speech of celebration where you will, raise a glass and you'll include a joke and a story about someone. Perhaps you're going to be at a graduation and you'll, raise a glass and give a toast to your best friend. Perhaps you'll be at one of your parents' retirement party, or perhaps you'll be at a wedding. But all of those are speeches to inspire. So we will do all four of these types of speeches in this class. And thinking before you even get too far on your journey, where you are, what your goal is what your purpose will influence every decision that you make throughout the preparation process. Today's lecture is really about informative speaking and thinking about organization. Whenever you do informative speaking, which is what you will do for your first speech, it's really important that you meet two burdens. One is that this is new information, and two is that it is useful information. So it is new information to your audience. Obviously, if you are doing an informative speech on how the collar, if you were, going to take someone's blood pressure, the way in which the blood pressure cuff works would be new information to most majors on campus. If you were talking solely to nursing majors, and perhaps they were juniors or seniors, they would know a lot of the information related to a blood pressure cuff. And so you would maybe share different information to that specific audience than you would to a communication studies office audience. And the reason that it is important or useful to your audience would also vary if you were talking to a generalized audience than if you were nursing majors also. So the information that you provide should be new and useful depending upon who it is that you are talking to. And as speakers, we want to be audience centered. So we're going to be very mindful about who it is that we are talking to. So that is the different purposes that you have as a speaker. And depending on if you are doing informative speaking, if you are doing persuasive speaking, if you are doing speeches to inspire, thinking about your purpose would make a difference in the stories that you tell, the information that you include, the expectations that your audience have with regarding everything from time to evidence to the appropriateness of jokes, and how much your audience would be able to participate with you as you try to involve them in your audience. So, whenever you're thinking about speech making, the first question that you have to ask yourself is, what is my goal? What is my purpose? And then from that, you can begin to make other decisions with regard to what organizational pattern do I want to use, and what types of evidence do I want to talk about, and how long do I want to speak.